Hey, we are live here with We Called It. Connor Lucas is finally back after like a month hiatus. I think it's the last time we've seen him. He is going to be giving his takes on all of his draft reactions, winners, losers, who was the best and worst picks, fantasy-wise, or just things he liked and didn't like. We're also going to be talking about schedule winners and losers. This isn't, we talked about win totals previously, and that was who do you match up with? This is like the schedule is screwing a couple teams over, and the schedule is saving a couple teams' seasons. We'll break those ones down. And then lastly, betting win totals. We're going to be talking about how this might not actually be a good way to use your money, just based on expected value, time value money, all that fun stuff. So, Connor, let's start off by saying hello and welcome back.
Hey, what's up? Man, looking good.
All right, we got that all out the way. Seconds before our show started, you were all hot on Zach Charbonnet. So just let it go. Let the Seahawks hear it.
I mean, winners, losers by far is the Seahawks. Detroit would take a close second, but the Seahawks take the cake. And so I don't know if Pete Carroll... Now, this could totally be a case of like real life, like fantasy football where you just take best available. Could be. Maybe that's how Pete Carroll does his things. I don't know. But he kind of goes back and forth because he reached relatively on his fifth pick. So they picked Devin Witherspoon, who was arguably the best corner. This wasn't like a slam dunk corner pick like you've seen in the past, like Texans with Derek Stingley, like a big name. Like Texans took Derek Stingley. 2 years ago, the Lions took Jeff Okudah. That at the time was like a slam dunk pick. Weatherspoon was not a slam dunk pick at 5. He was widely considered the best, if not one of the best corners in this draft. But like at 5, I see a whole lot of other needs. You could have went defense. You had who we thought was going to be taken, which would have been the Jordan. No, not Jordan Davis. The kid from Georgia,
Jalen
Carter. People thought they were going there. I get it. He was spooked with the vehicular manslaughter case that he's got pending, but he was potentially the number 1 overall pick 2 months ago, and you could have had him at 5. And then you went somewhere else that somebody was like, that could have been a mid-round first pick. Fine. In fact, you could have got him at 20, where you took JSN. Okay, fine. I'm fine with that pick right there. I'm actually okay with that pick. You're in a run-first offense. Fine. But then don't follow that up and say, hey, all right, we're maybe transitioning to a more pass-happy offense, which is what you did for the first 9 games, by picking almost at the exact same spot. 9 picks after you chose Ken Walker in the 22 draft. You took another Ken Walker in almost the exact same spot in Zach Charbonnet. And then, this is the kicker. Late in like the 5th or 6th or 7th round, Pete Carroll took another running back, Kenny McIntosh, from Georgia. So another guy who was potentially a mid-round pick that went to Georgia and sort of was in that, churn and burn running back sort of RBU. McIntosh is a good running back. So you totally, in terms of like, we just positional value, who could you have gotten at the 41st pick in 22 if you were going to go ahead and choose Ken Walker? Who did you miss on? Go look at any draft and you could find a gem that they could have had that would have helped their defense at that point. Go look at 52 this year and say, okay, who could you have gotten? Who could you have gotten at 52 instead? Or take it all the way back up to the 5th pick. Who could you have gotten at the 5th pick? I mean, you can do this. Like, this is like the classic, like, I shouldn't say Browns, but it's Cleveland Browns light here. This is like totally, like, these guys could totally whiff, and then you see like Justin Jefferson went in the 22nd round, and Jalen Reagor, went to the Eagles before that same year. Like, I'm telling you, one of these guys is going to be like just useless. and people are going to say an all-star comes out right after this, and they're going to say Pete Carroll could have had this. And, again, I don't know if his philosophy is just take the best available, but you could argue that they're not even doing that. I don't know what they're doing with this.
Well,
they are good players, but in terms of need, man, this was bad.
That's exactly it. Like, this is Geno Smith's your quarterback. At no point will you have a high-powered offense besides the first 8 games of last year. So you're going to have just limited, yards, touchdowns, everything to go around. You get JSN to pair with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, who are already stud receivers, top 20-ish both in their own right. And then you have Ken Walker, who showed he's an explosive back. You need the ground and pounder. You need the guy that can take 15, 20 carries a game. You didn't get it. And now it's like, what's left to go around? Like, how much meat is left on the bone by grabbing JSN to get like 50 catches a year
and
for
even Ken Walker showed that he could be a 3-down back late in the season last year. He wasn't hurt. He was a little bit durable. Like he got healthy, and then he came back and was a beast fantasy wise, and even in just non-fantasy. Like, he was potentially like a bell cow. People in off-season dynasties were drafting him super high. Now, it's fantasy, I get that, but you went and took a guy. Not only, let's say you totally had the ability. I was thinking about this, and you said, hey, we need a complimentary back. So somebody to complement the skill set that Ken Walker has. So on the board at that time, you had the track star from Texas A&M, Devin Achane. Go out and get him and say, hey, smash and dash. Ken Walker, we need you to be Zeke Elliott from 5 years ago, and we got our Tony Pollard. Charbonnet is built and runs the same way. I think Ken Walker's actually faster than him. They have about the same receiving skill set. They're about the same size. I mean, they are mirror images of each other. You didn't do anything. Hell, take Deuce Vaughn. Take the stud little dude from Kansas State, who, by the way, has an unbelievable, if you look at his receiving stats, were unbelievable in college. Dude is going to, at a minimum, I think he's going to spell Tony Pollard for a couple of plays a game. He might return kicks. I don't know. But my point is, this was just asinine. So, I kind of I'll move on to the next one unless you want to say something else about Pete Carroll.
No, we're good. I had my thoughts on this previously. You nailed it. I just don't I never understand what the Seahawks did. They're just lucky that they drafted 5 starters last year. That's the bottom line on why this team is where it is.
So by the way, I actually don't mind the JSN pick. Tyler Lockett's going to sunset, but the problem is at 9-8, 8-9, you are not going to get a premier quarterback to fill the void once Geno's gone. So if you pull the classic Arthur Smith, stupid Falcons, and you're just waiting to get one of the top passers next year and transform your organization, Kyle Pitts, Drake London can sit the bench, and when they come in, now you have an unbelievably explosive offense. They will be bad this year, likely. You can't say that about the Seahawks because Pete Carroll, X's and O's, is actually a good coach. So you go, what are we supposed to do? Get our next face of our franchise at 20 to 25? There's only a handful of Mahomes out there, and they're not going to fall to 17 like he did or whatever it was in 2018. It's not going to happen.
Mortgage their whole future so that they can trade up and take Kyler from the Cardinals.
Yeah, I don't know. But anyways, JSN on the future I think his future's bright. I think he was the best wide receiver here. He's the new age wide receiver, not just a slot, can also play outside. DK is a true outside, complimentary. So I'm fine with that. The rest of the whole entire draft was just mind-boggling. So same thing with Detroit. Okay, so Detroit took Gibbs and already had Swift. Okay, my point for that is he was going to end up in the middle to the back of the first, maybe even early second. There was a chance the Bengals would have taken him late in the first. That was really the only argument that I would say truly had a chance to somebody to reach up into the first round and take somebody.
I saw the Bills liked him, but like even then though that is behind both of Detroit's picks.
Yes, exactly. So my point is, you could have waited and seen what happened, and I actually think after the fact this is a beautiful pick, but at the time they had Swift. So you either move on from him before the draft, so it makes a lot of sense to do this right now. I mean, they got kind of a late-ish pick, kind of a loose pick, not a very good value from, Howie Roseman stole Swift from Detroit. If you do that before the draft, I think you get more value because you're saying, hey, we're moving on, or hey,
you're not holding a first-round running back, and everyone knows you're not going off your injury-prone guy.
And now everyone's going to say, what are you going to do? You're going to have Swift and Gibbs? Everyone knows unequivocally you're going to say no. So you literally just totally played your hand, and now you get a fourth-round pick or whatever it is. Useless. So that was terrible. They reached on a I would call him a throwback linebacker, an Iowa linebacker, who is just going to be a machine in between the tackles, can't really cover that well, or doesn't have a great pass. When it's bad when like McShay or Kuiper says he would have been there. He's a hard-nosed ball player. He'd have been there in the second round, though. And that means, A, you're not a new age linebacker. You're a classic Iowa linebacker that says, he will literally punch you in the mouth on and off the field, but he can't cover a running back. He can't cover new age. He can't cover side to side. He's just going to be able to go side to side and just get loads and loads of tackles. But he's going to get toasted by a guy like Bijan Robinson, your own player, Gibbs. Name 15 running backs in the NFL. They're going to just toast him. So guess what? You wasted another first-round pick on a first and the second down linebacker. So that's just the first two picks. So, to me, I think they traded up. They traded up to get Gibbs, right? They hemorrhaged something. They gave up something, I thought, to get Gibbs. They might have moved back or moved up a couple spots, like 14 to 11 or something like that. But either way, reach of a pick, you played your hand. A lot of people say, oh, we got guys in the draft that we're targeting. Yeah, but you got to be smart. Like, you can get those guys. Like, you could get that value can fall. And it's likely to fall. We talk about statistics all the time. Look at who's in front of you. None of them are going to take Gibbs. None. I thought that was stupid.
Yeah, I think Matt Friedman of Fantasy Pros was just like, yeah, the Lions brought a checkers board to a chess competition.
Yeah, I don't. It just doesn't make sense to me at all.
I'll tell you what, if they were playing Madden 2003, this would be a good draft.
Yeah, I mean, just like old school, and I get that that's Campbell's thing, buddy. It's like Riverboat Ron, Arthur Smith, the GM that just came in from the Tennessee Titans and said, quote, yeah, we're going to run the football when it gets cold. We don't play Golden State basketball on the football field, doing all this air raid and stuff. I'm like, my man, have you watched football in the last 10 years at all? The highest diminished value of any position is the running back. We're going backwards in terms of what we're offering people if you're not McCaffrey. Saquon is getting less offered money and won't take it than McCaffrey. And we're sitting there going, dang, like $14 million a year for running back? That's good. You should take that. And he walked from it. We're going backwards.
I was going to say, just look at all the running backs that requested trades. Dalvin Cook, Nick Chubb, Austin Eckler, Derrick Henry, all still on the teams because no one wanted to give them anything.
Relatively one-dimensional, too. You have to be over the top great. You have to be Hall of Fame skill set. And Saquon will get paid, but, even the 3 years, $25 million deal for Miles Sanders was a little bit of a reach for the Carolina Panthers. He got a lot of money guaranteed, but like his yearly is lower. But that tells you, I think he's getting like $9 or $10 million. mean, that tells you it's going down. And that's considered elite. That was the best running back in this trade group. So,
and that's also a team that had money to blow, kind of.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Huge amounts of money. But
yeah, no quarterback, no star receiver. So,
yeah.
All right.
Starting from scratch.
Let's see. I think you have Jordan Addison is your next one.
Yes. I mean, this I think is a slam dunk for them. I also like the fact that they picked up. No, it wasn't Hendon Hooker. They picked up somebody. They picked up a QB for life after Cousins. There was somebody that they picked up that I actually thought they could. Oh, the kid from BYU, Jaron Hall, I think is his name. So he's a gunslinger. Got a lot to learn, but like they're at least
the exact opposite of Kirk Cousins.
Yeah. So like they've got like potential in him if they felt like if Kirk Cousins really sucks this year. But man, just think about it. This is a former Biletnikoff winner. He was a little bit injured last year. This is like the kind of like a lesser version of JSN, where 2 years ago these two guys were like top 10 overall picks, like, and it's not even close, potentially top 5. Addison was a Biletnikoff winner 2 years ago at Pittsburgh, and now he goes to USC, plays with Caleb Williams, gets hurt a little bit, has what you would consider quote unquote a down year, but a lot of that had to do with his injury. Same with JSN. But if he's a Biletnikoff winner and you just put him on the opposite end, O'Connell came out and said this past week and said, hey, listen, you got Justin Jefferson, the best wide receiver in the NFL, on the other side. You literally have to win one-on-one. And we think he can win one-on-one. He is going to be fantasy viable this year. I think this year, floor, he is going to be the best draft pick for fantasy rookie this year.
So you're taking all right. So Ken and I were thinking Quentin Johnston would have that just because Mike Williams is going to get hurt.
See, I'm not betting on that. I'm betting on just scheme. He walks into the number 2 position. He doesn't have to have a ramp.
Do you trust his size? That's where Ken and I worry, because this dude,
new age wide receiver. He's the same size as Justin Jefferson.
He's 174, dude. He is a twig.
New age, man. I'm telling you. Tank Dell, Houston Texans, 3rd round. CJ Stroud's going to find him. I understand that he's 174. I get that, but in the NFL, it's funny that you say that because a guy I used to work with was an analytics. He ran analytics for Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I told you that before. He was just like, people don't understand the level of intelligence that's so much more complex in the NFL offensive coordinators versus college offensive coordinators. The amount of scheme that goes into being able to get somebody open is insane. They scheme people open based off of their talent versus, hey, fit my offense. Mm-hmm. Take your talent and fit my offense. Justin Jefferson was arguably the reason he dropped in the draft was people kept saying, can't play outside, too small. Can't play outside, too small, too skinny. You know, he's 190 pounds, maybe, something like that. Probably 6'1", 6 foot. I mean, they're not that far different. He's actually built like JSN. And people talk about range of outcomes, like we were talking about Monte Carlo. Well, you know, JSN has been like his Monte Carlo outcome, if you want to call it. One of his things is his floor could be, you know, Tyler Lockett. He could just come in and be Tyler Lockett. His ceiling could be Justin Jefferson because he's built the same. He's got incredible route running. Chase is a little bit different because, you know, he's kind of a home run hitter, built the same, but 4.43 speed, 4.34 speed. JSN's not a burner like that. Less about home run hitting, more about tactician. Jefferson, think about it. Justin Jefferson doesn't hit that many like 70-yard bombs. Jamar Chase does. Jefferson's more like, I got 15 targets and I got 13 of them for about 190 yards.
He mosses you for 40 yards and gets tackled.
Yeah, that's what JSN could be. But I actually don't mind. I just think first year, it's crazy as it sounds. If you're in a redraft, I would take Addison first. I know I'm crazy, but I just would take him in terms of like if you need him, I would take Addison. I think JSN has to wait a year before. What are they going to do with Tyler Lockett? He's still paid a lot. It's the Seahawks. They still play for Pete Carroll, and then Quentin Johnston. Like if you look at his like detailed like route running, I am deathly afraid that Kevin White and Brashad Perriman are in his range of outcomes. Yeah, bad.
So
Yeah, go, for those who are listening that don't know who they are, go look them up. Like mirror images. 6'4", 220, 4'4" guys, rut row. Can't catch a brick.
Dude, Kevin White was a fine player. He just didn't know how to run, and he popped his knees every 3 steps. I actually had there was a sports doctor who looked at him. He's like, "Yeah, dude, he doesn't run. He runs heel toe instead of on the balls of his feet, and he is literally just popping his knees because he can't run correctly."
So I am afraid. Like that's what I've seen. He's pretty polarizing because he's huge.
Yeah,
but he's not a hands catcher, and he doesn't have a great route tree. But his upside is huge. Keenan Allen, I don't care what anybody says. I know he's 31, but the way that he's able to play, that was his first serious injury last year. It was a hamstring. That worries me a little bit. But when he came back and was healthy, dude was a top 12 receiver in fantasy and across the board. He's Justin Jefferson soul food. I thought that they were going to cut him. And I would have said if JSN went there, draft him first or draft him second behind Bijan, because you tied to an elite quarterback in fantasy as a volume offense. Kellen Moore is now there. Volume offense, man. That would be huge. So I would want pieces of this, and this also supports your QJ potential breakout because you're tied to Kellen Moore and Justin Herbert.
That was our argument, and he's the deep threat that they've been dying for that can regularly be on the field. They have a million guys that can kill you for 15 yards. He's big and fast, and he's going to have one-on-one matchups. All he has to do is burn them.
So, Mike Williams did that 2 years ago, by the way.
Yeah. And my point is people focus Mike Williams, and now you got QJ on the other side. Just like, I'm just going to sprint. I'm going to do the Randy Moss. I'm just going to run faster than you to the middle of the field, and I'm going to catch the ball for a touchdown.
Fine, but is that fantasy viable? No, you're going to have 1 for 102 or 1 for 50.
I'll take it. It's 5 points. All right.
Okay.
All right, let's finish this because Ken and I had fun with this. We were talking Bijan Robinson obviously goes to the only team in the NFL that could use his skills, and that is the Atlanta Falcons. Arthur Smith loves to run the football. He's going to take over for Cordero Patterson. Ken and I said, though, goodbye this year for Kyle Pitts and Drake London. It's a funeral for them. Desmond Ridder is not a legit starter. So what's your take on the Bijan?
No, but I think they're going to be losing a lot of games. So I would say London and Pitts can be viable. And that's why I would say Bijan is agnostic to winning or losing games. It doesn't matter because they're just going to dump it to him in the backfield, and that's going to be beautiful. Like, you're going to see, hopefully, cross your fingers, a full year of Breece Hall plus. I mean, I get that they have Algier. I get that they have Patterson. I mean, Patterson's a cut candidate, so we'll see what happens there. Mm-hmm. But Algier, fine. I'm tired of hearing people, oh, he's a 1,000-yard runner. Okay, volume, and also he's not overly athletic. We're talking about like every metric says Bijan is as talented or more talented since Christian McCaffrey.
Algier is your 3rd and 2. I'm gonna run it up the gut, and this guy's gonna fall. This guy's gonna fall forward.
Yeah, so he won't be on the field when they start losing. Bijan will be, and Kyle Pitts and Drake London, I think, will have viability this year.
You think Desmond Ridder can support two players?
You didn't let me finish. I would say they are, like I said, they are going to be getting a new quarterback next year. Seahawks won't be. They will be. So, hold out. Do you know that they discussed Kyler Murray at the draft? Arizona and Atlanta discussed sending Kyler to
That
Atlanta.
so that might happen next year then.
That's what I mean.
When the draft picks all start to fall and you see
Because Atlanta's
Arizona
going to have
has
some high draft picks.
yeah you're going to be looking at Arizona has one in like 6 or something, and they're going to be like, we'll give you Kyler, and then end up with like 1, 6, and 15 and 12 or
top
12 pick.
There. They'll end up there. And the other thing about Arizona is, hey, we just paid a crap ton of money to this dude, this little 5'9" guy with the weirdest, pairing of a head coach, Gannon and this guy. It's just not. I do not see it working. I don't see it working at all.
You know what's going to happen? Caleb Williams and who's the coach at USC who was famous at Oklahoma? Lincoln Riley.
Lincoln, yeah.
Lincoln Riley's gonna be like, I can go to the NFL, and you're gonna give me the best QB prospect who I've already coached for 2 years. That's what's gonna happen. Book it, Arizona.
It's possible.
If I was Arizona, I would
stay, but I would say Caleb goes to Arizona and they move on from Kyler, which isn't a bad thing. People are worried about that in fantasy. It's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing at all. Dude, it is kind of a dumpster.
It's an upgrade. You have one. All right, so you get one down year in terms of statistical production because it's just the way it is. A rookie isn't going to be better than a guy who's a Pro Bowl caliber player. But like, I think in year 2 it could be a push, or Williams slightly worse. Than 3 and on, he's going to be better. That's just the bottom line. Caleb Williams is going to come in and wreck the league.
The Cardinals are the Browns of the West in terms of management. So
there was, I think it's Greg Cosell who does phenomenal player comps, and he's like, I don't want to do it, but Caleb Williams is a more controlled Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah,
and
people do that, and people
terrifying.
Have him. And then Drake May is supposed to be Justin Herbert.
Yep. So, all right. So we got all the draft picks out the way. I'm gonna run through I think I have 4 schedule winners and losers here, and I'll just let you know what I thought. You can put feedback. I'm guessing you were focused on these rookie picks that you didn't have time to look at the schedule.
Mostly.
I did.
I don't know the schedules. All I know is there were some big winners and losers that you were telling me about, so enlighten me.
Number 1, the Dolphins. Last year we made fun of them. They got roasted in December and January going 1-5. They don't have to play a road game in December the way they did last year. They lived in the Northeast. Now they get to play all of their game. They're like 5 of their last 6 games at home in Miami. So that one saves Tua from cold weather getting hit a lot. Like you get hit worse in the cold, and then it's just you don't get the Miami advantage of like, hey, it's 9 million degrees and we're used to playing in this, and the team isn't. But you also get the advantage of we're a fast team who doesn't have to play in the snow. So huge advantage, especially when the playoff push comes around. I think this is going to be a wild card border team. You get 5 home games to end the year.
So are you drafting Tua in any leagues in fantasy this year, redraft or dynasty? Because
I'm not touching Tua. I am more.
He's one concussion away from being career ending, but like he's got the keys to the Ferrari down there. So.
Yeah, I'm not touching him because of the concussion thing. I personally, I think I've said a million times going in to last year, I would retire if I was Tua, and he mentioned that it's been on his mind. So I hope the best for him. I hope nothing comes of this, but he is just way too, and it's the way he falls. You can see him get tackled. He doesn't protect himself. So it's just sad. He could have a wonderful career, but I have a feeling it's going to come to an end.
I mean, if you got him in Dynasty, hold on to him. I mean, but I would start making, potentially backup plans.
Yep. All right. Who is their backup quarterback? Because I actually think
Mike White.
All right. I am very happy that I think he can fill in enough to go maybe 2-3, 3-2 in those last games. Number 2 loser, the Eagles. So they start off the season at the Patriots on Tom Brady night. I was looking at this. I think ESPN has the best. It shows you the price tickets for each game. The average ticket for any Eagles game that isn't this first week is about $150 to $200-ish. The price for a New England ticket on this week is going to be $500. The stadium's going to be crazy. This is a Patriots emotional victory. I think they can come out and new coordinators don't get things right away. And even though the Eagles are better, they're going to lose it. And then in the middle of the season, they have their stretch of the only 5 hard teams they play back to back to back to back. It's like they get the Cowboys into the Bills, into the Chiefs, into the 49ers, into the Cowboys again. Yeah, it's their only 5 hard games. It's going to cost them the 1 seed because if they go 3-2 in that stretch, it's a victory, right? Well, now you're already a 3-loss team. You have a choke game somewhere, and all of a sudden there's only one number 1 seed, and the 49ers can scoop it up or something because they have the tiebreaker now. So yeah, that it's just that one stretch really ruins their season.
Yikes! I didn't know that. I mean, that just makes me feel weird. Just because, like, they could easily, I can't say over, but they definitely can't go 5-0.
Correct. Last year teams were 0-16 or 0-15 after playing the 49ers. So it's like you just have the Chiefs.
That's the Mick Ryan's team, though.
Yeah,
that's the Mick Ryan's defense, though.
They're still going to be physical and hard nosed, even if they don't do it right. And the rest of their schedule, I see nothing, like no back to back tough games. You know what I mean? Everything else seems fine. This is just one bad stretch. And if they go 5-0, I say just hand them the Super Bowl. All right. Next up, obvious winners, Bengals and Packers. They have the shortest travel among any team in the NFL. They are.
Does that actually matter? They always pull out the miles traveled stat. Seahawks are the longest.
Well, so obviously the Seahawks, the 49ers, the Dolphins, just based on location are. What matters is bouncing back and forth. And so if I'm on the West Coast, do I go to the East Coast back to the West Coast? Yeah. That matters. And the nice thing is the Bengals, who I think they're in a tough division. You might not agree, but I think the Browns are legit. I think the Ravens have Lamar and are going to be legit. And then the Steelers are always tough. Not having to travel or getting a travel loss just thrown in there is a huge win for them. So,
I mean, I just think that whole division is just a nightmare. It's going to be what we would have thought the Chargers division was last year.
Yeah,
it's going to actually be that because you don't have crappy coaches.
Last year it was like every team was respectable at minimum 7 wins. With the Browns were the worst team at 7 wins, and this year I think all the teams are only better. So
yeah, but in that division we forgot to account for a silver spoon coach and a guy that also should not be a head coach still, which is Hackett and McDaniel. And we thought, oh, that's going to be great just based off of the rosters. Well, if anything shows you that coaching matters, it was that division last year. Oh, and then Staley, more or less crapped the bed too. So, you had one team at the Chiefs that came out of that. So
turns out they got the 1 seed and it won them the Super Bowl because of it.
So this is a little different with the AFC North.
And then we'll wrap up with this is the only really hard stretch I could find, but the Patriots going into the last 6 weeks of the season. So playoff time, right? If they're a borderline wildcard team, which I don't think they will be, but how are you going to end the year always matters in terms of optimism into the next year, right? They get the Chargers at Pittsburgh, the Chiefs at Denver, at Buffalo, and then the Jets. It's just that's 6 playoff teams. It's so unfortunate for them that I think that is the end of Mac Jones's career as a Patriot.
Mac. That's another team that's going to get a quarterback next year.
Yep. So another guy that I think they're going to go in and they're going to be like, dude, we lost the last 6 games. We were 5-4 or something, or 5-6, whatever it is, borderline fighting. And then you're just going to get
see Bailey Zappi in the middle of the year this year.
I hope not, because if he plays those last 6 games, he's going to be done too.
Hey, they have to figure out what they have. Sam Howell, he's going to get a shot this year. Sammy Howell is going to be Sammy Slammy, or he's going to be Sammy Grammy. We're going to find out.
Dude, I love Sam Howell. He made me so much money, and I appreciate it.
I know you do. I keep, watched some more of his highlights. He's sneaky athletic. He's got a pretty darn good arm. The idea is that he could be like actually really good, and he fell because he lost. I think it was 2 or 3 wide receivers and a running back, 2 running backs to the NFL. Part of me thinks he might actually be able to, if he comes out hot and they start winning games, there's a chance that Sam Howell could be legitimate. And
I was impressed with some of the throws he made in his lone start last year. I'm just curious because they only threw the ball like 20 times and they were running it up the gut for 3 yards and then pulled out a couple good plays.
So
let's see how it adjusts or when defenses adjust.
I have a running, I wouldn't say it's a running bet, but I have a dissenting opinion. My brother thinks that Eric Bienemy is Matt Nagy. And I was like, what are you talking about? He was like, okay, think about it. Everyone thought Matt Nagy was the next guy because he was Andy Reid's protege. He went to, and he was supposed to be the guy that was the brains behind it. Andy just called the plays. Then he went to Chicago and had one of the worst performing offenses. He had one great year.
I was going to say, he did make Mitchell Trubisky look like a legit quarterback.
He had one good year and then just fell off a cliff. So he said, why do you think Eric Bienemy is any different? He didn't call the plays. He was not in the headset. I got to believe that he's an X's and O's guy. But, I was trying to think of a rebuttal, like who else didn't call plays before they got.
I have one. One of my favorite coaches, Doug Peterson.
Peterson did not.
He did not call plays.
So that I was like that. Somebody would have said, "Okay, yeah, we need you to call plays first. Come be the offensive coordinator." Okay, here, all right, he's offensive coordinator. Fine. Ron is he's not the head coach, so Ron still takes all the heat. Bienemy gets to kind of see if he's legit or not. I'm more optimistic than he was. He is not buying any of the Commanders. He just said he's not.
So I am a full-on Commanders lover. I've been talking about it forever.
Yeah, but not because. Okay, take out the fact that they made you money. I'm talking about like.
No. I mean, before that, I was in on the fact that they have they're one of the teams with the best defensive fronts in all of football, and they have a solid offensive line and good offensive weapons. Their offensive scheme and play calling has just been terrible. So,
fine. So you think Bienemy is actually going to come through?
Yeah. If Sam Howell can be a average starting quarterback, I think this can be the Giants of last year, where it's like no one thought they would be good, and they came out, they won some tough, gritty games with like a couple good plays by out scheming and having a couple better players.
That's probably a good comp.
For the record, the Giants were like an 11-win team or something. I'm not saying that. Like, this would be like a 9 or 10-win sneak into the playoffs kind of.
Yeah, and they were incredibly ugly wins.
Yeah.
Ugly. So I could see that. But Daniel Jones looked good. He was fantasy viable. Sam Howell could look good and be fantasy viable. Mm-hmm. He's more athletic than people give him credit for, which is
their running back won't be shot in the knee going into the year.
Yeah. Because I said something about like buying into Gibson being the new Jerick McKinnon, and he was like, no, different player completely. And I was like, because we're talking about fantasy, mm-hmm. he's a big time Bienemy denier. So we'll see. I'm
in on Bienemy. Sure. I just have to be. I love Doug Peterson. I liked Matt Nagy for the year of his success, and then he didn't come out with anything special after that year. So
he was a glorified Coach Clapp after that. Seriously, he was just like, "Hey man, we're doing great. Hey, you just lost by 30. Man, I thought the guys came out of the locker room with great energy. Matt, you lost by 30. I know, but we did great in the second half.
You just wait. We'll get them next week. We only lost by 21.
I remember a reporter just like asking him that question, and they were getting blasted. And he said something about the energy in the second half, and everyone just like blitzed him because you were like, did you just seriously say something about like not being upset because, man, I thought we got great momentum in the second half? Like, you're a moron for that. Like, you should be fired. And he was fired. This was like his last year too. This was when they drafted Fields, and it was something about like, I'm happy with the Justin Fields progress.
Yeah.
And then he was like, also starting Andy Dalton though. And then he was like, we're not going to start Justin Fields for the full year. Week like 3, Justin Fields is in. All right, cool. Andy Dalton got hurt, fine. But then they were like, all right, you going back to Andy Dalton? You said Justin Fields wasn't going to play. Nope, Justin Fields is our guy. Okay. And he sucked. And then it was like, all right, this guy doesn't know much about football. So.
And then he had Justin Fields pocket passing, even though he was the best runner
Yeah.
since Lamar Jackson.
What are you doing? What are you doing, man? What
All
are
right.
you doing?
All right, let's wrap up with the one thing we actually know stuff about. Finance. All right. So I said we're going to be talking about betting NFL win totals. And we talked about picking our win totals a couple weeks ago, who we like to go over and under. That wasn't like betting. I mean, we did say what we would, or who we like, the sides we would like to take. But in terms of actually betting, I don't think placing your money on a long-term bet like this makes sense. And it just strictly comes from a cash flow perspective, where the value of betting, I think we were talking about before the show, is that you get the chance to constantly reinvest your money for a high risk return. Where if I win one week and I make 15%, I can bet it and make 15% the next week. When you lock up a bet for a win total, you're doing it with a certain expected value. And I told you, let's say you have a 60-40 chance on a team to cover their win total. That turns out to be like a 14.6% expected return. Well, you also have, it either comes out, it doesn't come out in the average, right? It comes out as 0.91 cents return or -1 based on a $1 bet. The current risk-free rate to invest your money is 4.29% and a 1-year return. So it's like, why would I even risk the outcomes? So that's my thoughts on it. What do you think about trying to do a long-term bet and lock up your capital like this?
I mean, in terms of like in a nutshell, in a vacuum, just looking at single bets, no hedging, like it's dumb because your range of outcome is 0, and you might win a week and double your money and could have 0 in the next. So you have to win consecutive weeks, pull some out, keep some principal, or like I was saying, if you just look at it that way, like that's dumb. You can reinvest your money, fine, but the risk is always you end up with 0.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
but even if you don't reinvest your money, you get the opportunity to make consecutive returns, right?
Yes, which is fine, but you could also make consecutive returns of this much, which means 0 times 0 is 0.
That's correct.
That would be a negative 100% return. So, but you could, I mean, we're getting into like the weeds, but if you took things at halftime and hedged the opposite of a small portion, you take 50, you win 1 week, you have 100. Okay, great. Your principal that you want to keep is 50. You take the 50, you put it on something else that's more risky. You look like you're winning. Okay, great. You take 25 and you bet the opposite just in case that one loses. So you preserve the principal. We're talking about stacking. So we're talking about wins and losses from one game in like a vacuum, up, down, being able to reinvest. But there are portions where you would say, okay, win next week to get that compounding period. You got to win again, or at least not lose, or keep that principal. So where you got 100, you went 50 to 100, and now you say, okay, my goal is to keep 100. So you take 50, you put it on some kind of odds, and that goes great. And you take 25 for the opposite odds, so that at the end of the day, if you had, 75 that you still have in principal or whatever it is, or whatever the numbers I was just making up, you take that 25 on the very risky thing, And then you say, okay, if that loses, I cover more than my difference. So you keep that 100. I don't know the numbers that I said, but the point is you keep the principal intact so that you keep that original return of doubling your money. If you look at it in a vacuum, you lose your money or win your money, that compounding period goes to 0 if you lose it. So you're starting back at 0. So a bond, or whatever you want to call it, a 1-year return, you give your money away and it comes back a little bit more. That's it. That's it. It's a zero sum. I mean, the zero sum game that you're going against isn't necessarily that. So long story short, like, it's not as clear cut as it's a bad idea. If you're looking at it with those two scenarios, it's a bad idea. If you chop it up, you can make it more risk off. And like your point, it's like we just talked about Quentin Johnston. His range of outcomes is you quadruple your money. His range of outcomes is he's Kevin White. Negative percentage. Lost all of your capital. Gone. So how do you hedge that? Okay. You maybe go out and you say, hey, if you're in fantasy, I get Quentin Johnston, but I also get Jordan Palmer. Quentin Johnston, I also get Mike Williams. Okay, you're hedging a little bit. It's not as black and white. And that's in your scenario it is, but getting out in the weeds.
Yeah, I mean, so the idea is if you believe in yourself as a bettor, which every bettor technically has to be, because it's a risk-seeking nature of gambling. And it's like, I'm not going to make a bet that I assume is going to lose. But it's, why would you only make one bet over the course of a long period of time if you believe in yourself? It's like,
yeah,
it's like I'm playing the odds of all the bets I have. Let's say I have a list of each week I can find 10 bets I like. Why would I take money away from those 10 bets just to put it in something that I might get paid out in 6 to 8 months at the end of the year? It's like, I would much rather be able to continuously put that money back into, in this case, my fund or my capital for betting, because I believe in myself and I can earn, let's say, even if I earn like a 5 to 10% return on average throughout the year, like week after week, that compounds. Versus the second I take the money away and I give it to the sports book, like banks do this all the time. Now, I'm not saying sports books do this because there's definitely legal ramifications from like the SEC that they're not allowed to, but it allows them to like take that cash and put it into a risk-free vehicle where they can earn 4%. And it's like they're taking, so now the net to you is 14% on average, but to them it's only minus 10. It's a huge advantage to the sports books compared to what you can put into your pocket, which is like, everyone knows you want more compounding. It's just better. So
yeah,
I unless you can tell me like for sure there's something broken, and we mentioned there's a couple, like I think the Jets or the Giants is one I'm like heavily confident in to go under. So that one is one I might be okay with. But other than that, I don't see a reason to do these long-term bets unless, now hear me out, I got screwed over on this one. But I did, I think 2 months ago, I did the Lakers and the Bucks to make the finals in the NBA. It had 50-1 odds. So in this case, I saw a good value on it, which I turned out to be right.
Not a parlay. Not a parlay, though.
It is.
Separate.
It's a parlay.
It is a parlay.
It is Celtics and Lakers. So the Heat screwed me over majorly. but like the value on it was the fact that the Lakers, I thought, were so undervalued to make the finals, and that's turned out to be right. But like if you do a long-term bet like that where you can get these in like who's going to lead the league in receiving yards, who's going to lead the league in rushing yards, you get like 10 plus odds to 10 plus.
See, this is where like theory and reality just like diverge for me.
Okay.
You're betting on people and teams that don't have outcomes tied to them. Okay. We're literally betting that Justin Jefferson leads the league in the NFL and he doesn't blow out his knee.
Mm-hmm.
Things that you can't control. Can you or can you not control a bond? No, you can't control it, but it's sure. You know that they are going to, the Treasury, the United States Treasury has never defaulted on a Treasury bill.
Yet.
They're going to pay you. They're going to pay you 4% in coupons, probably monthly or quarterly. You're going to get 4%. You're going to get, you put $100 in, you're going to get $4 4 times in a year. And in a year, you're going to get that $100 back. So you now have $116, Phil. Justin Jefferson, if you put $100 on Justin Jefferson, the odds of that happening are 10-1. That's great. So you make $1,000, or you make 0 when he blows out his knee.
So, one, that is just the risk-seeking nature of gambling in general. Like,
I get it.
But my point is...
apples and oranges a little bit here.
Yes, but my point in the end is, if you're going to make a long-term bet, get a big reward for it. Because otherwise, I think it's a waste of money to say, I can double my money or almost double my money in a year with base odds, right? It's a 1.9 or a 90% return on your money. It's like, that is not.
That's why we talk about risk free. It's why we talked about free bets.
Yeah,
take huge risks, big time gambles. You're
Correct.
out nothing.
I want it, but if I'm holding my money for a long period of time, I want a huge range of outcomes, because the alternative solution, like I said, is to take that money each week, bet it, and try and recycle. Yeah. Well, essentially reuse the same money, recycle over and over and over again, and get an average return across the year, which can compound versus locking it up.
I guess I was confused by your initial comparison, because I thought you meant one bet. Like, you take one bet, you take a $100 bet each week, and you say 100. I'm like, it's literally A or B. You either win or you lose each week. And I was like, that makes no sense. If you're talking about a portfolio of short-term bets, fine, got it. Long-term play, 60-40, got it. Okay, I'm with you.
Gotcha.
I thought you meant, hey, compare a $100 bet a year from now that says the Kansas City Chiefs are going to win, and or you could take next week you could take the Chiefs. Take the Chiefs.
I could take the Chiefs every week and just make more money because they're going to win.
Yeah, but guess what? You take that same dollars and then they lose, and you're like, wow, I got $0 after 6 weeks.
Correct, but like that's part of the range of outcomes, and that's my point. Where it's like, I can have a very small range of outcomes for whatever money I was going to set aside, or I could have a large range of outcomes for whatever money I was going to set aside.
Fine, but
Give
you
me
also
the large
forgot
range
to
of
mention
outcomes.
that you're taking that in a portfolio of 15 bets each week, not one single bet every week.
Correct.
Versus the one single bet that you have long term. Got it.
There you go. So you agree with me?
Yes, I agree
people are
with
ridiculous out here.
I'm just saying in general. Don't confuse our viewers, Phil. Jeez,
I'm sorry. They probably are just like, this is. They probably clicked off when I said we're not talking finance, we're talking football anymore. This is on finance. So
whatever. We actually need to put this at the front. Education.
Or we just need to put up our own separate channel. That is, but we called it education, and we can make the K backwards and everything.
101, 101.
So
fine.
All right, this is so stupid. And are we done with this? By the way, I think we've said all we wanted on time value of money and how this is the difference in reinvesting in
compounding periods, internal rates of return. Do we want to do that?
Portfolio management versus one-off risks. All right. Anyways,
got it.
There was a restaurant in Columbus called 101 Beer Kitchen, and me and Noah thought that it was because they had 101 different beers, and so we went there, and they go, no. That's like, this is like the intro to Beer Kitchen. We'll teach you about beer and stuff. And I was like, we aren't drinking here. You are way too snotty for us. We're going to go to that shady bar over there where we might get stabbed.
We're not drinking here. We don't care about how you make the beer.
I don't need this information. I just need to know. I just need a beer in a glass.
10 different types of yeast.
Mm-hmm. I was interested when you told me you have so many different kinds of beer, so I could get confused. Now it's
not
just
101
boring.
Ingredients in one beer.
The Colonel's secret recipe, 101 different ingredients in one beer.
Who cares? Probably sucked anyways.
Hey, some of those beers are good.
I mean, fine. I don't like snobby beer people.
I am not one. I used to be.
I'm not one.
I admit it.
High end, those IPAs. Woof.
And now I have learned much better, and I sit with my Natty Lights. Loud and proud, baby.
Well, I don't do that, but that's a little too low for
I
me.
just always need to bring up that a panel of actuaries voted, and Natty Light was the number one cheap beer.
Are they all just out of college?
No, this was a blind taste test. I think I've brought it up on the show before.
It's because what people are used to. What have they had the most of? Yes.
I don't want to say that, like, this is gonna sound mean, but actuaries coming out of school, they're not your typical party folk. They don't.
Dude, I'm gonna tell you right now. We had this thing when I was in high school. I remember this. We had like
Natty Light.
Local. No. We had like a pizza like cook off from like all these different ones from like Columbus come in. You could try them all, and it was like there was like Papa John's and then Domino's and Donato's, and then you had like the low key like really good made from scratch ones. And I remember being like 14, and I would keep going back to like Papa John's, and I'm like, yeah, this is what I know. It's the same thing with Natty Light. It's what you know. It may not actually taste good or be the best quality, but it's what you know.
All right,
Looking back on that, I would like to go to the holes in the wall and be like, man, this is 10 times better than Papa John's.
So you might be right. Our theory on it was that Natty Light was just the best when you had been drinking, because we had tried like 30 different beers and we did like multiple rounds of this. So by the end, you drank like 5 or 6 beers in like 30 minutes. And like you were pretty tipsy at the end. So if Natty Light was the best when you had been drinking and we had all been drinking excessively.
So start off with all the other beers first, or start off with Natty first and finish with the other ones.
Well, the problem is we did, so we had like 30 beers. We broke them into groups of 4 or something. And then you tried them and ranked them. And then like the winners of each round came back and you tried them all again. So like,
dude, everybody can tell what Natty is. Like you can smell it and you're like, yeah, that's Natty. Seriously, take a whiff and you're like, yeah, that smells like water mixed with beer. That's Natty. That's the truth.
That is so true. But you know
it is so true. Bud Light has a specific smell too. Miller Lite has a specific smell. I don't know why I know all these smells of beers, but I just do. The same thing with like Coors is, maybe I'm thinking of the tastes, but the smell's got to be there too. I remember like they all have distinct smells and tastes to me.
So I know Coors does because
it's like more nutty. Coors is more nutty.
Busch is terrible. That's the one I'm thinking of. Busch is like
it's interesting because like Busch would be like comparable to Natty for me.
Really? Because I'm over here like Busch is the bottom of the barrel. If you left a can of Busch open on a table, I'd be like, clean the room. I don't know. Decontaminate this.
I honestly don't know which one I would choose. I actually didn't mind. I did not mind Busch Light.
Well,
didn't mind Busch Light.
You're wrong. Because Natty Light is the obvious
Miller
choice.
Lite in college, and then recently I had it and I didn't like it anymore.
Well,
I actually was like, I'll go back to Bud Light.
Now we're fancy gambling talkers and men of finance. You have to drink the champagne of beers, Miller High Life,
or just drink gin. That's what I do.
I'm actually.
I told somebody that the other day, and they were like, "Are you 70?" And I was like, "No, I'm 29. I'm not even 30 yet."
I stopped.
If you drink it straight, I was like, no, not a chance. I don't know anybody. I don't know any 80-year-olds that drink gin straight. I don't know anybody. I don't know a single person that drinks gin straight. You have to mix it with something. Then it's different. People are like, oh, that's better. Yeah, I'm like, yeah. I'm not stupid.
Yeah. Out of support for Sarah, I stopped drinking. She has the whole baby thing in her. So
yeah. So you stopped too?
Yeah. I mean, like, I wasn't a person who was like, at the end of the day, I wanted to have a drink. I've had a couple, but like across like the 9 months she's been pregnant, I'd say I've drank
Wouldn't be
less
any
than
real
7
change
days.
for me. I don't drink during the week.
Yep.
Barely ever drink on the weekends anymore, so
Yeah.
it's not a part of my life all that much.
You're right. We need to move closer to each other so we have a drinking buddy.
That's fine.
All right. Great news. You're moving to Cincinnati. Glad to hear it. On that note,
Aeon.
Aeon. It's remote work, dude. You can do it anywhere.
Well, I'm telling you, look up your investments department. Look up your portfolio. If you find something, tell me.
You
Tell me
do
if
remote
find
work?
something alternative. I would do remote work. I mean, the work, if you're doing the thing that I'm thinking of, which is going out and researching and underwriting real assets, you gotta go look at them. You gotta travel anyways. But you only travel for like a day or two at a time, and then you come home. It's different to come home and set up an office than come home, then go drive however many minutes to get to an office downtown. I don't mind remote work. I don't.
I love
collaboratively for investments though of millions of dollars. Most of the time, you want to be able to have a meeting with your boss. If your boss is fine with that, and you don't have to ping them first and say, "Hey, are you available right now?" You just walk over to his office. Fine. If there is a team that is able to just say, "Hey, we're all remote. Call us whenever." Fine. That makes sense. If you're saying, "Oh, half of us are in the office, half of us aren't," the people that are in the office are probably going to be closer, more collaborative, whatever, have better rapport with their upper management. Fine. If everyone's doing that, or if everyone's doing some sort of hybrid, then it's fine. I don't mind. I think that if you have mixes and matches, you just end up getting behind, right? We have remote people that work now, but if that's not important to you, like you've said, it's not all that important for me to move up as fast as possible. It's not really all that important for me to move up all that fast and possible, or as fast as possible, but I also know the amount of things that I can screw up that if I'm just like, done, here's the model, go give me $10 million to invest, boop, with no oversight, it's easier for somebody to say, "Hey, can you come over here and look at this model? Hey, can I send this to you and review?" And they're like, "Why'd you do this?" "All right, let's set up a meeting an hour from now after we've forgotten everything that we just talked about because I have another meeting in between."
See, and I'm over here like, I'm perfect. I don't need supervision.
Yeah, well,
that's not true.
If you screw something up, then good luck, buddy. It's on you.
Hey, it's only on me. We gotta go.
Oh,
We've held you too long.
The desk for a second.
Deuces. Good to see you. Happy birthday.